So the goal today is to start look through the tutorials about graphics libraries, and actually a great way again for me maybe, and I'm hoping for you, is actually doing the code in our own little web page as we go through the tutorial, combining what they're demonstrating into one web page. And let's look at that assignment description, and we can actually get that started as we begin to look at graphics. And let me bring up the page for John Smart. He's in this course, and we'll bring him over here. He's going to go to the course, and underneath the assignments, John Smart is going to do this graphics libraries demo. I'm skipping chapter homework 10. I'm going to go right into graphics libraries. Not doing animation yet. That's something that we could implement in our capstone. We're just going to do the graphics, scatter, line, various type of charts to get used to the idea of using graphics libraries. And if we come across something animation, we'll combine that. But let's get a basics of understanding, first of all, use of libraries, other people's code, and how we can make use of it. They have a wonderful tutorial on this at W3 Schools. So I'm going to go right there right now at John Smart, being redirected there. This is a section on JavaScript, and they discuss 3 libraries, actually more than 3 libraries in their code. Down here to graphics. Where's graphics? Here we go, graphics. They discuss Canvas, Plotly, Chart, Google Chart, and D3. That's why I have this here in the assignment, is demonstrate in one web page the use of these 5 types of charts, and a little challenge: is there a 3D graphics library out there that we could also demonstrate? I have not found one that does not require something like Node.js, which is a little bit of a pain to actually try to install and use. But I'm giving you a little challenge. Is there something 3D out there that maybe you can find that works as easily as we find with this 2D stuff? So let's take a look at a tutorial on use of graphics. And they start out, this on W3 Schools in their graphics section. They talk about graphics libraries, and they talk about Plotly, Chart, and Google Chart, but they start with Canvas. So Canvas is like built-in graphics that you can use without getting an extra library. So we'll start with that. Well, let's see the kind of things we can do. We have Plotly that can do pie charts, giving it producing a legend and numbers, data points on the charts. You just can imagine what goes into this. At the very least, you provide your chart some numbers that represent somehow the portion of the pie. You must be providing it some sort of listing of the legend, names to go with those colors in your chart. So probably, I would guess, an array of strings for what's going to be in my legend. I'm thinking maybe an array of numbers that will represent the pie, slices of the pie, and perhaps the array of numbers is in the same order as the array of names. I haven't used the chart yet to know for sure, but there's a pie chart, and then maybe we tell it the radius of my pie chart. Somehow we tell it a title, and then it generates a chart for us. And chart.js comes with a variety of charts. And I'm not asking you to create every type of chart in the assignment, but we can explore what's available. So chart.js shows how it can create bar charts in this particular case, pie chart and bar chart, and it looks like it's the same set of data, but charted differently. And we go down further, and we have Google Chart. Oh, look, I can generate pie charts using Google Chart. Ooh, they're a little more interactive. As I hover over things, it shows me the data and the legend. So maybe Google Charts are a little more interactive. About the same kind of chart, except this sounds like a pretty cool type of chart. I can do a geo chart. Looks like again I provided some array of numbers, an array of things to go in my legend, a title, and it generates a chart for me. And what else do we have? We have, oh, we don't have any templates yet, but they give you kind of a short example, and then when you click next, it takes you to the first Canvas example. So let's go next. And now they're explaining Canvas can do fairly simple charts, and they give you some code, but they don't give you the complete code. When you go to the try it yourself, you'll see the complete code for the web page. So let's see what the try it yourself shows how to do a scatter chart in using Canvas. So let's go to the try it yourself, and let's see if we can understand this code. It's not a complete page like I like that has a header and a body, but it works. I'm going to take this code to do my own, but I think I'm going to start with my own template that actually has the head in there, because I like having a complete page. But let's read through this code and see if we can understand what it's doing here. I'm declaring in the body a element called a canvas, giving it an ID. I'm giving it an ID because I'm going to need to be referring to it from my script of where to be drawing when I come down here and do my drawing. Telling the width and height of my canvas, and then giving it some sort of border style. Just for fun, let's change that border to 3 and see the effect of that. Let's change that to 3. That's why I love the try it yourself. Even before I edit it myself, I can make a change and see the effect. I can change the color of my border. Let's make it green instead of boring gray. Oops. Run. There we go. Much more interesting. Okay, so I have a canvas. All right, canvas apparently is what then I will be drawing onto. Let's look at the code. Right in the example code, I get a handle to my canvas in my script. I give it the name canvas. That can be confusing. I have an element called canvas, and I have a variable with the name canvas. And what is it? Well, it's the document get element by ID who has that ID my canvas. Yes?
The variable const canvas is called a handle?
I call it a handle. You could call it an object or the element. Since it is returning an element by ID, a better name for it would be the element. But we're treating it as a canvas because canvas is our special. Here's what makes a canvas special. I can get what we call a graphics context. They gave it the name CTX, but basically, in order to draw on something, you draw using the graphics context. This is common to Visual Basic as well. I haven't used Visual C++ to see if they use the same thing, but typically, when you want to draw graphics, you get the graphic context that lets you do the drawing, and we see that right here. I need to do some sort of transform function on the context. And what you can do is see, well, what happens if I don't do that? If I don't do the transform, what happens? Here's where I use the context. I'm starting to draw a path. I draw an ellipse with some parameters, and then I fill the ellipse. And it's all methods of the CTX, the graphics context. Just for fun, let's see what happens if I don't do the transform. Let's comment that out and run. Ooh, my graphics went the opposite direction. So it looks like this transform, it looks like the normal context, the normal graphics, one is, positive numbers go down. 0, 0 is upper left corner. I'm guessing what they did, they want to reverse the Y direction, so when I graph it, large numbers get graphed properly to the right and top of my screen. That is one thing about graphics, that your typical graphic 0, 0 is your upper left corner of any rectangle. And when we're doing mathematical things, 0 is expected to be either at the bottom or the center of our graph. So that's what the transform is about. One thing about these examples, they don't give you comments, so it's up to us to figure out what's happening from the context and then throw in our own comments. Okay, so I'm seeing here, it looks like I have a bunch of numbers, and let's see, 50 and 7, and then 60 and 8. So these numbers are increasing, these numbers are increasing. So it looks like these are the X and Y positions of my numbers. The X and the Y where I'm going to plot. And I can confirm that. I see here in the code, X is my X array at position I, as I goes from 0 to the length of my array, multiplied by 400, divide by 150. So I am scaling my X to be 400 divided by 150. So 150 is my max X. So X at the maximum is going to be 400. And where do I get 400? Well, that is the actual width in pixels of my canvas. So we have some hard-coded dealing with the size of my canvas. That's why I'm doing this. I'm dividing by 15 because 15 is my max size of my Y, and therefore the highest Y should go up to the top of my canvas. I'm not sure why it's not on the very edge, but it's in a little bit. Even though my canvas is 400 by 400, my last Y, this number should be producing a 400 times 15 divided by 15, but yet it's not graphing it on the very edge. And that's something that maybe I could debug. Here's how I draw it. I start a path, I draw an ellipse at X and Y with, what does this mean? Let's find out. What if I change that to a 6 and then run? Oh, that is determining the size of the little dot I'm drawing. So this is drawing an ellipse, 3 pixels wide and 3 pixels high. Not sure what the 0 and 0 are about. Let's change that. Is that having to do with, not sure what the 10 is about, but if I change it, I don't see any difference. And this, let's see, if I change that to pi times 1, oh, that determines how far around I do my little circles. So playing with this code helps me understand what's happening. Now, we want to put this code in my own web page because I've been asked to create a page demonstrating all these graphics libraries on one page. So let's get that page started, and we'll demonstrate the Canvas portion of it on my one page. And I'm going to use VS Code. And let's see if I have VS Code window over here. I'll bring it over to that side. VS Code, I'm going to start a new folder. Let's see, I want to start a new folder. No, I don't want to create a new folder. I'm going to open a folder. Let's see. Here, open, there we're going to go. File, new, open folder. I'm going to create a folder for this assignment. I'm going to call it HW11. So I'm in my folder where I have all my homework, JSmart's homework. I'm going to create a new folder called HW11 graphics. I'll call it a graphics project. Create the folder. Oh, I have to do new folder. There we go. Graphics. HW11 graphics project. And now I've hung up VS Code. Why would I hang it up? Try to create a folder and then select it. It's not happy. Let's see if it's happy in a minute here. Why should it be hanging up? Creating a folder with the name. I don't see any other. There we go. Now it seems to be happy. Okay. And yeah, I'll save what I did in the practice. Okay, so here's my graphics project. No, I don't need the update right now. Let's now create a new file. I'm going to give it the name graphics demo.html. And I'm going to start my own web page by hitting exclamation point tab. And now I have all the necessary parts with the head and body. I like having a proper clean HTML with a nice head element, because that's where I plan to put all the external scripts that I'm going to be using for later libraries. Now, in the body now, I want to duplicate that first demo. Let's go back to that demo now in W3 Schools. The editor, and I'm not going to duplicate this part because I have a better part. I already have a body, so I'm going to duplicate from here all the way down to the end of the script. Copy and paste into my body of my HTML. And up here, let's give it a title. I'm going to give it John Smart Demonstrating JavaScript JS Graphics Libraries. We don't want to build our own library. We want to use others. We stand on the shoulders of the giants. We don't start from scratch unless we want to learn to be a giant ourselves and build our own, because we have much better programming skills than those people. But here is my canvas. I copy pasted from the example. So let's go ahead and put in there. I'll put in here scatter chart demo from, and just to be safe, to not be accused of plagiarism, I'm going to copy that right there. So the first one is easy. It's given me a canvas back in the demo. I have a canvas object with borders defined, and then some code that I'm going to read through and add comments to. Okay, so this was all copy pasted. If I want it to be indented nicely, which it wouldn't be a bad idea, I'm going to select through all of that all the way up to there and hit tab and get it nicely indented. It's up to you how pretty you want it to look. Let's make sure it works, and then we'll come back and comment this and then add additional code demonstrating another type of graph. So right now, let's see if this works. I'm going to go to, I'll go to Firefox. And Control O for open. And let's browse over to those pages I made. Let's see here, HW11 graphics project. And I'll double click the graphics demo. And look at that. I get that scatter chart just as they had on the Try It Yourself. But it's missing some things. I should have something explaining what this is. So let's go back to my code, and let's add, right before that little canvas, let's add a little paragraph. Simple scatter chart. But let's put ahead of that, let's put a little H1, maybe a H3 in front of that. Canvas graphics demo. There's going to be a section for each type of graphics. Did I see a hand up there in the front row, or are you good?
Is people.mas.edu not up and running yet?
Oh, it should be. I guess I had to go there and reset it. It was stuck on a loop. Maybe it's dead. Let's try it. I see it's there.
Issues last night, but it seems to be working fine for me now.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, because last Friday, when I did an update, it wasn't coming back. It wanted to do a restart. So I had to go manually. I forget what question was on the screen, but I continued it through the update. Actually, it was locked up. I had to power cycle it. It was not rebooting. In the shutdown, it was hanging up, waiting to shut down, and so I finally kicked it into a shutdown. I see it there now. Are you able to get into it, John?
Firefox, yes, and Safari, no.
It's what?
With Firefox, yes, but Safari, no. So I'm wondering what's going on with my...
Well, it's a Safari problem, of course. Could never be our site problem.
Last night I was trying to finish up a font change and it would load, so I would copy my JavaScript file over
Uh-huh.
to WinCP, and it would show me there that it was
I'm gonna log into it and see if
But
it's
working-
behaving.
It seems to be working fine for me now.
Okay.
And I played with it today and it worked.
Let's check. I'm logging in using PuTTY. I'm logging into the people.mans.edu server. And one of the first things I like to do is do a DF. How are we doing on file space? And we're only 64% full, so that's making me feel good. We're not running out of disk space. Weird things really start going bad when you're up around 90-95%. But we're at 64% disk space. Top is another command to show you, is it really busy doing something else? It doesn't seem to be busy on anything else. So right now it appears to be healthy. So let me know, John, if you're having issues. Maybe close Safari and reopen if Safari is giving specific things. But I'm just opening it. I'm just opening this file from my browser because I'm not depending on anything like Node.js, which introduces a lot of extra complications I don't want to worry about right now. If you get into something more complex, it may only work with Node.js. You're welcome to try that. But let's get the basic stuff done here. Here's a scatter chart demo, and if I refresh, oh, I didn't save the file. Let me go back and save it. I added a little thing at the top, Canvas graphics demo. Now I'll go back and refresh. Now I at least get a section showing Canvas graphics and the simple scatter chart. Now let's go back to our demo. And let's try the next type of chart and give a demonstration of that on the same page. I'll zoom out a little bit here so you see a little bit more on the page. So they demonstrate how to do a scatter chart. Oh, maybe before we go to the line chart, let's make sure we understand this code and let's add comments as we go. Let's close our File Explorer. Let's see if we can understand this code. So here I have, and you could put in here if you want to call it handle or element in which I am going to draw. That is my canvas. Now the graphics context is what I need to draw. CTX. And notice it is a 2D graphics context. Makes me think maybe I could try a 3D graphics context and see what happens. But we'll leave it at 2D for now. It looks like I am determining the width and height to be the same. Wait a minute here. If I go up here, I see width and height are set to be 400. It looks to me like it doesn't matter what width I set, because, or actually it doesn't matter what height I set, it's going to make the height be equal to the same as the width. So I'm going to put a little comment here. Force height to be equal to width. Notice how this is overriding the setting that I have up above. I'll call it an override. And they don't explain in their code why they do this, but basically I can tell that I am telling my canvas height, assign it the value same as my width. And to test that, I'll set my initial width to be 40, to be very narrow, save that, and go back to my example code, and refresh. Oh, look at that. Let's go back to my code. Oh yeah, the height, where is it? The height is set to be the same as width. I did that backwards. The width is 400, the height is 40. It's just not going to matter what the height is, because I see I am overriding the height right here. So now if I go back and refresh, now no matter what my width was set, or my height was initially, it's being overwritten because height is being assigned whatever the initial width was. So see how just playing with the code like this, I can verify, yeah, height doesn't matter. I could even leave height not even there, and my code will still work because the height is being set down in my script. Now, I didn't have to do that. I'm just testing that with my code to see that height doesn't matter because of this line right here. So forcing my height to be the same as my width. Make sure my canvas is square. Now this, the one reason I could look up on a reference manual what transform is, but basically I'm saying it's reverse, or say large positive Y is top. Remember, the normal graphics is 0, 0 is upper left corner. We are reversing that. And if I wanted to verify that, I could look up online and go look up JavaScript, or actually, yeah, JavaScript canvas context transform, and have canvas rendering explain the transform method of the canvas to be multiplies current transform with describe the arguments of, well, hopefully they give you an example here. Oh, transformation matrix with maybe a little example. I'm not going to worry about understanding the transform. I'm just going to take it for granted that W3 Schools knows what they're doing, and they put in a transform there to make my Y's come out properly. So don't worry about understanding completely transform. They did it, and I can see by messing with this that if I don't have a -1 there, my positive Y's go down, and my graph is upside down. Can you tell what's happening here? What would you say for a comment here for X and Y array? Yes, John?
That's creating the points that you'll then call.
Yeah, X and Y points, pairs to be graphed. Now, I myself, I think I would have made an array of X, Y objects rather than 2 separate arrays. I would have made an array of points, but that's just me and the way I like to do graphics. They made a separate X and Y array. I don't really like this way of coding, but I'll live with it because I don't have to mess with the code anymore. But if I were doing my graphics from the ground up, I would have an array of points because I like dealing with points rather than, oh, I got 2 different arrays. One's holding all my X values, one's holding all my Y values. That's just me though. So they put the 2 X and Y's to be graphed, and they better have the same length or I'm in trouble, right? Because I'll come to the end of one array and I don't have a Y to match it. That's another reason. And sometimes, even in coding, if you want your code to be nice and readable, you could even do something like this to make sure all your numbers are lining up nicely to see that you do have pairs. And again, that's up to you. You want to make your code very clear. Yes, I have a matching point for each number here. Oh. Getting the commas to match up. There we go. Oh, I actually messed up my comma. Getting the commas to match up makes it clear to me visually, yes, I have X, Y pairs, exactly the same number of X's and Y's. Can you tell what this is doing? We don't know yet.
It's the color of the dots.
Yeah, the color of the dots. So let's put in a comment. Get ready to draw the scatter ellipses. They're actually tiny ellipses. And the indent, when I did the copy paste, let's indent that nicely to make it nice and readable. And the way I understand this scale, basically, I'll put in here, scale nicely to fit in the 400x400 canvas. Hard-coded canvas sizes, I don't really like hard coding. We'll see in the next example, they don't hard code that. They keep track of how large the canvas is in another example. So here's the part about drawing the dot. Draw the scatter point. We have to do a begin path. We're telling it to draw an ellipse, and we're telling it to fill what I just drew, apparently. Seems rather strange. You think you'd say context draw filled ellipse, but it's draw ellipse, and then fill it. Seems a little bit odd, but that's how these basically code by example in drawing my point one at a time. This has to do with the degrees. This has to do with the size. I don't know what these two numbers have to do with. Let's look up ellipse just for fun to see what those two numbers mean. I'm going to go online and look for Canvas draw ellipse parameters. Oh, x coordinate, y coordinate, x radius and y radius. That makes sense. Let's look at the page to get the rest of the parameters. Rotation. Oh, I could actually rotate my little ellipse, so it wouldn't have to be just perfectly vertical or horizontal. And the start and end angle. Okay, I understand that now. And I do have this here. I'm going to copy that and put that in my code, just so I understand how to draw an ellipse, what those parameters mean. I'm pasting from a helpline that I found online, and I don't need the whole name of the parameter. I can have this in comments. Here's what these numbers mean. X and Y position of the center, the radius of each of those, rotation of my ellipse, start angle. So I start at angle 0, I go to pi times 2, go all the way around. So if I come across something like this, it's helpful to throw in comments. Since I don't quite understand this whole transform thing, I'm not going to throw in the comments context for that, because that's a whole transformation matrix that I don't want to have to worry about. But this, it's simple enough. When I come back later, I'll know what those parameters were to the ellipse. So this is the comments that I'm asking you to do. They give you code, read through it, understand what it's doing, throw comments in there to show that you understand what it's doing, and then save and test the code. And I get my scatter chart. Now, in the code yourself here, is there more that we should say about what a scatter chart does? Simple scatter chart using an array of x, y values. Actually, using arrays. Two arrays of x, y values. So a little bit of explanation on that section. That's all I'm asking for. It doesn't have to be a huge paragraph, but demonstrating a scatter chart. Now, you're being asked then to do a separate, on the same page, a scatter and line combined chart. Well, let's see if they give that to us here in W3 Schools. I see line graphs. Oh, here's an example combining them. Now, since I have the code to do them, can I just copy paste this code? Not quite, because I want this to be drawn in a separate thing, not in this box. We want to leave this box alone now, and we want to have a separate scatter and line on the same graphics, but a separate box. So let's go to back our code and get prepared for that. Actually, we'll look at their example. In their example, they show the snippet of how they do the drawing. They do the similar thing, let's plot, by drawing the ellipse. Then they add a plot line to what they already did. So I'm going to look at the try it yourself, because notice they don't keep here the part about getting the element by ID to actually do the drawing. So let's go to the try it yourself section and see that, oh yeah, we need a canvas, just like we did the first example. And then we're going to need a reference to the canvas, how to draw my objects, which they do slightly different format. They decide to determine my fill style up there. They do the transform. So very similar things, but to combine it on my page, well, since I'm going to be drawing it in a separate box, I need a separate canvas for the combined drawing. So let's go do that first. Let's go to our code, and let's see, here we're going to have a canvas graphics. Now we're going to put a little space there. Let's do a paragraph element, and now it is a combined scatter and line drawing. So I have an example, but I'm going to make a separate canvas. So I'm going to copy paste that canvas, give it a different name. It's my canvas right now. Let's call it my canvas 2. Very creative. I'm going to give it the same width, and just for fun, let's make it a different color. Make it a color blue for the border. So now I'm going to do the scatter, but this time it's going to be on my canvas 2. Well, how would I do that? With the code I have, let's leave that code alone. We don't want to modify that code, but we could copy it. So let's put a little section here, demonstrate scatter and line combined. Well, I already have my X and Y arrays. I don't have to redo that. My context is a different context. So I'm going to have to do this code over again for this different canvas. So I'm going to copy this code, copy, and I'm going to paste it here. And instead of my canvas, it's my canvas 2. And let's see here. Let's call it context 2, just so I know I'm dealing with a different graphics context than this one. And let's give it a different variable name, because I can't have two variables with the same name declared. So I have to change my variable name. Call this canvas 2, calling it the element my canvas 2. I'm given different variable name for the context for this second one, and I can use that. Oh, canvas 2 has to go there too. Yes, John?
Might it not be a better idea to paste it into its own function? That way the variables are within the function.
You're welcome to make it a function if you like, yeah. I'm feeling this is just easier as I go through my examples, but yeah, you could make a separate function and use the same variable names if you like, yeah. Notice how it's not that hard to change my variable name, just add a 2 behind all my pieces. Partly is it's forcing me to know what the code is doing here too. So it's a different canvas, it's a different context. And remember how we get the context? We have a canvas and we do the get context of it and assign it to a variable. Now I could have used a let instead of const up here, and then just said canvas, the new canvas I'm working with, without anything in front of it. I could just said, no, now the canvas is something different, instead of a new variable declared. I'm declaring a new variable just so I understand in my code, as I'm reading it, that I'm dealing with the second graphics context as I'm drawing my graphics. Again, that's up to you as you make your coding decisions to make it readable or easily copy pastable. So remember, I'm dealing with a different graphics context. Now let's see my code here, and at some point maybe I will do the, hey, let's change the graphics around. Let's see here. So I getting the context. Oh, they do something different. They didn't do this on my other one, that I do the fill style, right? They didn't have that on the other one. Let's check. They just said, here's my height is equal to my width. They did this too for some reason. See, and I gotta put in CTX2. So apparently, whenever I draw, all drawing will have this filled color. So let's see how the code works. Notice here, they do fill. They didn't do like they did before in the previous example. Every time, oh, they did it. They did the fill style right before their loop. Where in this code, they did the fill style way up here. Now it looks to me like their example is redundant. They have it here, but they still have it here. It's like, wait a minute. It looks to me like this line isn't needed because they're setting the fill style when they do their scatter. So I can see W3 School is actually, I don't know if I call it a mistake, but they actually gave you redundant code here. I just realized that. Now, here's the parts of the code that are dealing with drawing a line. So I'm going to copy that and come back to my code and paste that part. And I'm going to indent it nicely. And let's just put in a comment here. Used for drawing a line. I have a slope and intercept of my line. Y max and X max now are my maximum dimensions of my canvas. So rather than having it hard coded like I had 400 up here, if I decide to change the size of this canvas, my code doesn't have to change. This is I'd say a smarter way of coding. As they worked with their examples, the guy said, hey, let's show our students that number 400, we don't need to hard code it like we're doing here. That's kind of crazy. If I decided to change my canvas size, I don't want to go ahead and replace all 400s with a new value. I want to just say, oh, somewhere we define what our maximum height is, and in my code, it's independent of what the original height is. I just read it. So I'll put here, store current canvas size, canvas dimensions in the variables. Now back to the example code. I can skip this part because I already have that as part of the scatter chart. I'm going to go ahead and do the plot the scatter on this context. What do I need to do different? Well, I can just put in here that. I'm going to indent that nicely and change all my CTXs to TTX2. There's one, and there's the others, 3. And indent that because that's inside of a loop. Notice I'm not worrying about what the 400 is no longer hard coded. I read whatever my current size of my canvas is, it will properly scale it, except the 150 is still hard coded. Where'd I get the 150 from? It's the maximum value of my X. So I'm still sort of hard coding my scaling of my graphics. And I'll put in here scale properly, and I'll put in a comment, max X is still hard coded. I don't like it, but it came from an example, so I'll stick with it. I'd rather say whatever is the max X of my X values array, and this should be the max X val maybe of my Y array. But I'm not going to worry about that. But that is what's happening here. I'm hard coding so that my maximum Y for my X and Y spans to the furthest edge of my canvas. They don't explain that in their comments. I have to figure that out by reading through the code. And then same thing here, draw this spot. Just for fun, let's change our fill style to, how about orange? Is that a valid color? I think so. Yes, John.
Putting it in function seems to not fill it properly.
Well, then don't do fill of functions. We could probably fix it, but it's a good idea. It does take a little more coding. It's not filling it properly?
It doesn't fill it properly for either.
Are you passing the graphics context to the function? It'd depend on how you define your function and what parameters you're sending. Remember, your graphics context is what determines where things are drawn. So if you wanted to put this in a function, you would want it to be sending it your graphics context, sending in your X and Y arrays, and that should be all you need if you're going to turn this part into a function.
I put everything inside the function, so.
Oh, and I see a mistake here. X max is supposed to be canvas 2. Remember, I'm drawing on the second canvas here. I just realized if my second canvas isn't the same height, I might have a problem. I might make sure that this section here is all dealing with the second canvas, which is defined up here, my canvas 2, and I get element by ID right there. So canvas 2 is that second canvas.
I'm starting by grabbing the canvas via document got element by ID, grabbing the contacts from that canvas and then working from there on. So I'm not sure.
Well, are you doing? Well, you'll have to look at your code. Make sure if you're gonna do a different canvas, if you're using the same variable name, don't make it a const. Make it a let, or you will always be dealing with the original first canvas.
Even inside a function?
I'd have to take a look at your code. It sounds like you're close. Now let's see if this works. Let's verify what we're doing. We are wanting to do it combined on a different canvas, on a second canvas. I get the graphics context of that new canvas. I get the height, make sure the height of that second canvas is exactly equal to the width. So no matter what I have the height set to, it gets overwritten. That context has a fill style. I'm going to comment this out because this is redundant. Because I'm doing it right here. So it doesn't matter what I do here because here is what determines my fill style. So I'm commenting that out. Notice I'm not deleting it just in case I've made a mistake and I actually care that it's this right now. That would be the same as red because it's RGB, 3 hex values determining RG and B. I use the pound sign if I want to determine the color instead of a word. I am looping through the X array, element 0 to element length -1, because remember it's 0 indexed. X is my value of X times whatever its max value is, or sorry, times divided by its max value, multiplying by the maximum width of my canvas. And draw. Let's now, I believe this should all work. Let's go ahead and go to my test page and refresh. There it is. Combine. Wait, I don't have any line being drawn. What's happened? Let's go back and look at my code. Did I draw the line without? Oh, I haven't drawn the line yet. I haven't put in the code to draw the line yet. I just did the scatter part. Let's go do our line drawing part now, because I haven't put that code in there. Here is the line drawing part that I haven't pasted in yet, and this brings some interesting coding into here. Let's take a look at this. Copy, and let's paste the drawing of the line portion in here now, and indent it nicely. Now let's see how we draw lines. I move to 0, and this should better be called y-intercept, but I'll stick with their method. This is the y-intercept point. So this assumes that my smallest x is at position 0, or the y-intercept is at position 0, which is the definition of the y-intercept. Now, this means I'm going to draw a line to that. Actually, I'm get ready to draw the line, because actually the line doesn't get drawn until I actually do the stroke. Finally, draw it. So graphics sometimes has a couple steps before it actually does its thing. We're saying move to point 0 in my graphics context. Oh, and I remember that's graphics context 2. I better not be drawing on that first graphics context. Graphics context 2. Move to position 0. Tell it I'm drawing a line from X max to F, and that is my function down here. It's a call to this little function, which simply does a return of X times slope plus intercept. Remember the slope-intercept form of a line? This is my line equation. Takes you back to algebra. Slope-intercept form. I have my slope that I've defined up here as a 1.2. The intercept, I'm just arbitrarily saying, the intercept is 70. And that will be the position. I'm assuming that'll be the first place I start. I start at 0 intercept, draw a line to there, and now say the color of the line is going to be this color, set color, and then actually finally draw it. So we're learning about graphics here that there's multiple steps, and finally when I do the stroke, it actually draws a line. Now let's confirm that by now checking our code after saving that, and refresh. And now I have my line drawn. Let's see, does that look right? Uh-oh, it's upside down. Did we not transform my second context? No, we didn't do the transform. We transformed the first one. So remember that transform? Yeah, you're right, Abby, right there. I forgot to transform my second graphics context. That's what the transform is about. And let's see here. Might as well do the transform right after we declare it. That seems to make most sense. Is that where we did it before? Yeah, they transform it right after they assign it. I think we want to transform after we've set our width. I think that makes sense. Let's put the transform after its width and height are set. That just feels like the better way. And make sure I'm referring to the correct context in Canvas. Now, go back and refresh, and my line should be drawn correctly. There it is, a positive slope, slightly more than 1. So a positive slope of 1 would be exactly 45 degrees. Slightly more than 1, it's a higher slope, that makes sense. And my scatter plot is the same as that one because it is the same array of numbers. I just decided to change the color just so I knew how colors worked. So you see the process here, little by little, copy paste the code of the two pieces. First I do the HTML part where here's the scattered, it's going to be displayed to the user. A canvas is going to have a different ID that I'm going to be referring to draw inside of that one. Has a different border and color just to play with. And a little comment above it, and it's in the section under Canvas graphics. So here's the script for the scatter chart, and here's the combine on the second canvas. Now just for fun here, since John is doing this, let's see if we can take his idea. He said if we have a canvas, can't we just have this all in a function? I could, maybe the next time I do it. Since I have it working with this, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to worry about the next part using a different graphics library now, because I'm happy with this one. Canvas graphics demo. If I want these things centered, I can worry about style sheets later on. So I have it working with Canvas, and do I have a reference to the Canvas page? I'm going to put a little reference to Canvas here. Let's see what I have for the Canvas. Here's my Canvas web documentation. That's over Web API. It looks like this is the main page for dealing with Canvas rendering. Yeah, I guess I'll put a reference to this. Copy and put that in my code. See also that page to learn more about Canvas. And I'll put in here this code here is going to be multiple scatter chart demos. This is the Canvas. So up in my page, I'm doing a Canvas demo. 2 canvases to draw onto. And now let's go on to the next one. In W3 Schools, they give you that. Try it, and then you go next, and I think it takes you to Plotly right away. So they only have one page demonstrating Canvas because it's fairly simple. They just show you a few examples, but if you go to Canvas, you see that there's more than you can do than just scatter and line. They're jumping to the next one right away because it's more interesting. So let's go to next, and now we see Plotly gives us many kinds of maps. I've only asked you to give a couple of them. A bar, pie, and donut, and function. So it's pretty easy. They give you all these examples, so it's more of combining them. And maybe since I'm doing more and more of these, maybe we'll consider that function idea that John had. But let's look at their examples first. Here's the Plotly example. Bar chart. Oh, that's just beautiful. Produces a bar chart. Here I have 2 arrays. They call it an X array, but it's actually the titles beneath each bar. The Y array is the relative size. Oh, and look what I'm doing. I'm creating an object that is actually it's an array. Remember, the square brackets means I'm creating an array, but the only thing in my array is one object. Actually, it's an object containing an object. Here's the object that has an X and Y, assigned as two arrays. Oh, the type property tells Plotly what I'm plotting. I can even determine the orientation of that plot, apparently. And I can determine the color of my marker, or I have an object that apparently can describe the markers for that bar chart. Yes, John?
You see the SRC HTTPS equals at the beginning? It's grabbing an external.
Right. And you don't see that until you go to the try it yourself. So here you get the code snippet, but yes, let's look at the try it yourself to see what we're going to need to be able to do Plotly. The try it yourself shows us, ooh, I need this. So in order to work with Plotly, I'm going to copy paste that code. And I like to put these things in the head, even though I don't have to. I just like to organize my code that way. So in my demo code, I'm going to put in the head element a little comment here, HTML comment, some source files. For graphics libraries to work. And so let's put in all my sources. There is a script that I will need to use Plotly. Now, if I were writing this for a customer, I would probably not put latest. I would put a specific version that I have tested for my customer. But since we're developers, we're happy to just say, yeah, use whatever is the latest. Don't worry if my code will break in a year. So that will help me get ready to do Plotly. Now, let's look at the example. And let's see, in Plotly, they define a div this time instead of a canvas. So let's take that example and let's put that div up there, copy, and come to my code. And here I have the canvas graphics demo. Let's now below that put let's do another H3 element, H3 Plotly. Plotly graphics. I should be the same consistency. Graphics demo. And now I'm going to do a P bar chart. And now there's my div ID bar chart. And I see that in my style, I'm having my bar chart be 100% of the width, but I am also specifying the max width is 700 pix. So there's a width and a max dash width in my style definition. I could just as well put this in a .css. They decided to do it inline in their example. Now let's see what else we need there. So all they have is a div, and then in the code they create two arrays, and then they create the object, and they do the new plot. So I don't need the script and end script tags since I'm already there. I'm going to paste this into my script section. So I can Control-C copy, go to my code now, and let's make a section for Plotly tests. So let's down here, give plenty of white space, and put a little comment, Plotly demo code. And there is my script for Plotly. Let's indent it nicely just so it looks nice. And I'm going to indent those parts of my object to make it nice and readable. And now let's put in some comments. Oh, I see already that X array and Y array have been defined before, and VS Code catches that for me. So let's go ahead and let's call it X array 3, I suppose. And
putting in a bunch to make them handy if we can figure it out.
should we try that now? Let's see here. Well, I'm just gonna leave this code just because I think Plotly is gonna be different enough that I don't have to worry about that. I know, and the function is going to be quite different, I think. So I'm just going to call it x array 3, y array 3, and my reference to it there, x array 3, y array 3. If there were more changes, I might think harder about putting it in a function. So, demo code, we have define or declare and initialize graph data. Apparently, Plotly is expecting an array of objects. I would bet if I had multiple charts, like a cluster chart, that I could define another object inside of data. But right now, it's an array of our x values. Actually, this is my legend, right? This is my legend. This becomes my bar heights. This determines what type of chart, the orientation of my chart, and the characteristics of my marker. What is this? That looks like RGBA. That is, what is A? Something to do with how deep the color is, I think. So RGB, so I'm expecting blue.
Transparency.
Oh, transparency, okay.
Transparent.
Yeah. Put it.
Or like, yeah.
So RGB, so I'm assuming I'm going to get blue bars because that is RGB, blue is large number. And my layout is simply an object with a title of Worldwide Wine Production. Now I'm guessing there's more properties of the layout that might determine things. I'd have to go look at Plotly documentation for understanding all of that. And now finally plot it by doing plotly.newplot. Now how do I know what Plotly is? Apparently when I do the Plotly object is defined when I get to here. Notice I haven't declared Plotly anywhere, right? I've just declared my plot is, oh, it looks like my plot is, oh, that is the name of the div. Remember how I had a div named my plot way up here? Apparently, to graph it in my Plotly, you just say, what is the ID of the div that I want to put my plot in? Div ID, and then the object of the data. Remember, the data is my object, data object, data object. And the layout is my layout object. So Plotly, quite a bit different in how the function works. And apparently what this is saying is, generate a plot, contain it within that div that I have given that ID. Here's the data to plot. Here's something to do with the style of the plot, including the title. Now let's see if I've got this right by going to my page now and doing a refresh. I get a Plotly graphics demo bar chart, and look at that. It came with blue charts and the proper listing. Height of the chart. It looks like it's auto scaling. Notice I didn't tell it what I only gave it the size of my canvas. It has that data. It auto scaled its horizontal axis or vertical axis to fit my data nicely. Just for fun here, let's make that a 555. Save it and refresh and see what our chart looks like. Oh, look at it. It auto scaled. So Plotly does a lot of work for me. Just imagine trying to do this canvas, drawing this all yourself. Good reason to use Plotly instead of Canvas. Yes, sir. Oh, okay, you're good? Now, since Plotly is very powerful, and it seems to be easy enough to work with, let's go and do another example. They give us a, let's see, what did I ask you to do? A bar chart. Now let's do a pie. That's much more interesting. Let's see how a pie works. So it's going to have this lovely appearance. I'll bet you it's not going to be that much harder. Let's look at the code. Oh, look at that. I give it labels, values, and type equals pi. Is that it? Let's say that. Let's see that. Try it yourself. Look at that. Label, data, which the data only has the labels, the values, and the type of pi. Seems a lot easier to do a pie chart. So let's copy paste that code, but let's have a display in a different div. We'll call it myplot2, I suppose. We have the same arrays, so I don't think I need to redeclare my arrays. And we do have a different layout though, so let's do this. Here it is for generating a pie chart. So let's prepare for that. It's going to be a pie chart, Plotly pie chart. Let's go to the top where we declared where that's going to be. Make a second div for my pie chart. Actually, let's copy paste this whole part here. Paste it and change that name to be pie chart. And give it the name myplot2. Very creative. And then down here in my code, well, we're plotting it in myplot2. Now I could call this data, let's just call that data 2 and layout 2. Oops. And layout 2. Then I don't have to worry about anything but what pie charts look like. Now up here I did the data looks like this. Just to make it clear, I'm going to structure my data like that as well. So I'm going to just make it look nice to someone else looking at this example. They would see similar to that one. Let's put it in that same format just to make my code nice and readable. That I'm declaring for pie charts. I'll just put in here a little comment. Less. Oh, he just powered off his machine. He kicked the power button.
Man.
It'll recover.
It probably will.
Hopefully all your files recover too.
Yeah, I was saving like crazy because I've been losing VMs like no one's business.
So notice with the pie chart, it has that, it's a labels property, where in the bar chart it was an X and Y properties in the data. So notice it's called labels for pie charts and values, where here for a bar chart they call it X and Y. So if I went to the plot, I suppose I should at this point, let's put in the comments a reference to my Plotly page. So do they have one here? Let's see, W3 Schools. Do they give us a Plotly? I think they gave somewhere back, maybe at this main page. If I go back here to the main page of that help, I think they have a link to Plotly. Yeah, the learn more I think takes you to Plotly's page. No, that's the Plotly. Oh, maybe not. I thought they gave you a link to the Plotly page. I suppose I could look online. I thought they had, oh, I guess I'll search for it myself. I'm going to go look for Plotly reference manual. There we go. Plotly reference for Plotly. Okay, I'm going to put that there in my, oh, I don't want the Python documentation, although that'd be for Python. I'm assuming that the functions are the same, whether it's, I suppose it's going to be look different for, I want the JavaScript reference. I think it'll be this very close to the same. There we go, JavaScript figure reference. There we go, function reference in JavaScript. That's probably the page that'll be more helpful to me. So I'm going to copy that link and put that in my code as I work through the examples. Now let's get the pie chart working, and then we'll do the others. I'm getting a good feeling that the other examples are going to be very easy. Look how short of code it is for doing a pie chart. I am still using the same array of data, so I don't have to change that, right? I still have the 5 countries and 5 numbers. That's my X array. Oh, it's X array 3. I better get that right. It's X array 3 and Y array 3 for Plotly. I almost messed up there using the wrong X array 3, Y array 3. But it is a type pi. Let's see if I get the data right. Come back to my code page, refresh. There, look at how beautiful that pie chart came out. It even shows me my numbers as I hover over the piece of the pie. A lot of work being done for you by Plotly. You don't have to worry about all that on, hover, show a little box, all being done for you by the wonderful little Plotly library. If I click on there, what does it show? Oh, look at that. I click on the color and it, what in the world is it doing? Oh, it's removing them from the pie. I didn't realize what was going on there for a minute. I can remove Argentina and see the comparison of the rest. That's interesting.
That's funny that as you remove them, there's
Big row.
increase to compensate.
Yeah, it's doing some auto scaling for you. Yeah, so a lot of work being done for you. Nice reason to use libraries. We will stop here. We've been having so much fun. I hope you've been having fun. And notice, playing with code like this, it gives you a little practice of just how it's done with not a lot of work, except you got to recognize variables have to have different names as I'm doing the different demos. And it's easy to forget that, oh, I have to reference my array 3. And you can take the challenge of John to actually build the functions out of it. I would do that after I got it all working. Say, let's make it more efficient. Just because I know each graphing chart is so different, I just want to get them working first. Building a function, I would say do the easy stuff, and in the last part, see if you can find a 3D. That might be the most interesting. There's enough here that you've got enough to do just getting the various types of plot, just practicing that particular library. We'll do more of this on Thursday. So, but get ahead of this, and we can go back and maybe tweak it and have more fun with it, and maybe find some 3D stuff. And then animation. Woo! All right, have a good one. And I have recorded this. I will upload this